Welcome back to The Question, a Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host here on Tuesdays. It is Tuesday, June 23. This is our Tuesday edition of the show, 2.5 hours of entertainment, fun, thought-provoking questions and updates on things going on in the news. Glad to have you all with us. We will be joined today in the remainder of the broadcast by natural health coach Shelley Pagitt, by parenting expert Carla Barnhill, by home remodeler, repairer, and genius of the perfect wall, Steve Scherber, and theologian Tony Jones. And that's being brought to you each half an hour here on The Question. Now, if you're watching this on the YouTube, on the video uplink archives there on YouTube, you may know that we can only do 10-minute sections there on YouTube. So every 10 minutes, you're going to get a different one. So there are, however many 10-minute sections of that half an hour. So each day produces a whole set of YouTube videos. So but 10 minutes is probably long enough to watch anything on YouTube anyway. Doesn't it seem like it? Doesn't it seem like anything longer than 2 minutes on YouTube is really, frankly, gets a little thick, gets a little long. It starts to feel like that piece of gum that you put in your mouth, and about 45 minutes later you realize, this has been terrible for the last 12 minutes. I should have spit this thing out 13 minutes ago. What am I thinking about? And you've been just recycling that saliva in your mouth. Well, that's sometimes what happens when you get too long of a YouTube video. Talk about me. Hey, despite the recession, more Americans see sunny skies ahead. Now, look, this might be just because we as Americans are optimistic people. It's an optimistic country. Lots of us hear stories all the time. Now, it's not always working out evenly, right? It's not the same thing for all of us. Some of us are having a tough run right now. But for others, it's clicking along, and it's going to. And we hear stories, and we narrate the stories in this country of the success of people. And that's good to see. Well, in a little town in USA Today, they did an article on a little town called Mexico, Missouri. They're just doing it, right? Those kids over there at the USA Today, they got to pick a little town in Missouri called Mexico. Love it. Well, they say that fewer people have prospered over the last year than in previous decades, but over the past 2 months, people have brightened in their feel. People feel generally good about what's going on at the federal level of the government, and as I do, I feel good about it. I think Obama's doing the right thing, and seems to be setting the right direction. Now, how long that can hold, you just never know. You hope it holds out for a long time. You hope it holds out for all 8 years. If you're somebody like me, I guess if you have other agendas in mind, you might not want it to hold out. But I think so. I think I totally want it to go well for those folks. Hey, this is a home broadcast of The Question, Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host. And sometimes I forget to take the phone out of my room. By the way, I don't know if you can hear that little slight buzzing in the background. That little slight buzzing is my fan. It's my fan running in the background because our house was built in the 1890s, and while we've added air conditioning to it, it really doesn't work very well. Something I keep talking to Steve Scherber about. Not a lot of workarounds for that because of the base construction, but it's our little house, and the air conditioning doesn't work so well, so I have to run fans at the same time, especially out here in the studio on Peacedale Avenue, the Peacedale Studios. So people are feeling good about the country. People are feeling on the upside. They're feeling like maybe things are going to be going the right direction. And that is important. That's an important component of this whole thing, because the only way the economy is going to turn around is if people express confidence in it and participate fully in the economy. See, no matter what certain political operatives want to tell you, we don't live in a country that's dominated and controlled by our government. Our economy is dominated and controlled by the populace. No matter what they say, no matter what kind of intervention, no matter what kind of restrictions, no matter what kind of regulations there are, it is a citizen-influenced, citizen-run, citizen-controlled economy. Now, some of these people will try to scare you into saying that, it's going to be some big federal takeover. It's nonsense. It's not even possible to get there from here. It's ridiculous. But what makes this so important is that people have to feel pretty good about it, because if people don't feel good about the economy, if people don't feel like it's of interest to them, if they don't feel like there's a place for them to invest, if they don't feel like this is something that's meaningful and a place of contributing for them, then things aren't going to pick up. It's uncontrollable, frankly, and people know it. The reason economists have such a hard time predicting the behavior of economies anywhere in the world, but especially of complicated economies like that in the United States, is because you can't quite anticipate how people are going to feel about it. And the way people feel about the economy and their own lives and the prospect of their children and how well they're going to be doing in their own personal situations transfers into how they behave, and then ultimately transfers into the actual success of this all. So the psyche is quite important, which is why you see President Obama trying to talk to people and be honest, and his approach is tell them what they need to know and give it to them straight, and then people can deal with that. That's his. Bush's approach was don't bring people down with a bunch of glum news. Don't be a negative force on the psyche of people. And every president, every administration takes its own tack on how it's going to be a part of the collective psyche. But the collective psyche is urgent nonetheless. So it is a good thing that despite everything, more Americans see sunny skies ahead. That, folks, is good news. And it's good news brought to you today on The Question, a Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host. Now, if you'd like to chime in your own input, I'll be checking into the chat rooms here in a little bit. So give me your rundown on what you're thinking there. And if you'd like to call in on the studio line, I'd be glad to have you. That's at 646-929-1199. When we get back here after the next break, brought to you by the Onion Radio Network, we're going to chat a little bit about this other story that I saw in the news today about a Michigan man who is stunned that his DNA doesn't match that of a disappeared toddler from 1955 out of New York. An interesting little story in its own right. And he didn't want it to go like this, he says, but now he's in USA Today, was on the Today Show, is a popular figure in his own right. So we will certainly be having a conversation about that. So this is The Question, a Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host, and we'll be back after this from the Onion Radio Network.
Walmart to employ 80,000 Iraq War